and we'll introduce a little bit about us, and then of course start to talk a bit about all of the different career paths and all of the different kind of choose your own adventure within technology that are open to you. So I'm going to start recording as well. This is really conversational as well. So along the way, if you do have any questions or something comes up in the content that I'm sharing, please feel free to stop me, raise your hand. Would very much like this to be a conversation as well. So I'm going to hit record here. Okay, there we go. Oh, sorry about that. I'm just having a little technical. Okay. Okay, wonderful. Yeah. Next slide.
Okay.
And next slide. Awesome. Oh, go ahead. Yeah, sorry. Next slide. Friday afternoon technical difficulties. So first I wanted to introduce my team and myself. So we're really excited to have a conversation today, tell you a little bit about, of course, exploring career paths within technology and specifically software development. I'll introduce my team. So I'll start off. I'm the head of talent acquisition here for Wrangle. I'm really passionate about helping people find their purpose. I love technology. I've been working with technology, scale-up, startups, everything in between for about 15 years now. I love this space. I really love technology. I love getting an understanding where people's passions are and really helping to place them in organizations as well. So I'll hand it over to Eyal first to introduce himself.
Thanks, Cindy. Hi, everyone. My name's Eyal. I'm part of the talent team here at Wrangle. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm passionate about the end-to-end recruitment process and tech in general and just promoting a diverse workplace. Yeah, so that's a little bit about me.
Wonderful. Melanie?
Yeah, hi everyone. Happy to be here. My passion is with building relationships, whether it's with candidates or hiring managers or the team. That's where my passion lies, is just getting to know people and building relationships and watching the candidates that I correspond with receive job offers while watching the company grow.
Awesome. Wonderful. Next slide. Cool. I'll start off by introducing a little bit about Wrangle as well. Of course, we are a digital consultancy. We're really passionate about doing things the right way and then improving on them. So really that's our philosophy, and that's at the core of who we look for at our organization as well. Digital consultancy to us means that we work with clients all the way from startups all the way up to enterprise on a number of different solutions, front-end, modern, web development, digital transformation, kind of everything in between. So that's a little bit about us and what we do. Next slide. Cool. For today, I thought, of course, we talk about web development career paths and really understanding the different channels, the career progression, either get really deep into the craft or exploring other opportunities in and around software development. Talking a little bit about the career path progression and all of the different avenues to lead to senior leadership and kind of everything in between as well. Options outside of development. I'd love to have a little bit of a sense and a little bit of a discussion today on the other options in and around software development, all of the different roles within a technology organization that software developers often do move around into. Skills and competencies, we'll talk a bit about that, and within each of the journey and each of the progression of these roles, talk about all of the skills, the competencies, and things to be aware of if you are making a move into the various different options as well. And then I'll leave time for Q&A and any questions that anyone may have as well. Next slides. And then just toggle through these. After this session, of course, I'm going to give you a better understanding of all of the different career paths specifically within software development and the opportunities to focus really deeply into the mastery of software development or pivoting altogether as well. Cool. Okay, next slide. Okay, and just as a reminder, we partner with modern digital organizations to create really modern digital experiences. We help organizations to scale as well. And we're really that intersection of product development and engineering here too. Next slide. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the paths within software development. Al, you want to kind of show all of them? Perfect. Okay, so the 4 different paths and how we look at software development here, and of course in a lot of startups and enterprises, are these 4 paths. The consultant path, I'll discuss that in a second as well. The business path, the expert path, that's where you get really, you master your expertise in software development, and of course moving into leadership. The consultant path is really an opportunity for someone to develop their technical breadth of experience, but focusing a bit more on the business orientation as well. So this type of career path could be someone who's really interested in the technology, potentially consulting with other organizations. But ultimately, this person may have more of a path and a passion for the business side of software development, maybe a little bit more hands-off in the day-to-day coding, but really passionate about technology as a whole, of really helping organizations them to really come to that conclusion of what the pain point or the challenge is with their specific technology challenge, and helping them to progress into that. Moving forward into the other slides, I'll talk a bit about what exactly these type of roles are, just to help you contextualize this. The business path focuses a little bit more closely on the internal teams and supporting internal teams to, of course, champion the technology with clients in particular. So the business path could look something like a technical director, where you still are ingrained in the technology within the organization, but whether that's working in a consultancy like that, like us, or a product organization, you're really that intermediary between the technology teams and as well as the teams that you're supporting, whether that's an external client or that's internally shipping a particular product, or your internal stakeholders as well. The expert path is exactly how it sounds. So really going deeply into your craft in particular. These are really opportunities to really explore software development, either specifically within certain frameworks or stacks, or have still a little bit of a broader understanding, whether that's a different framework, like you're really interested in React or Angular, you're really interested in backend, in Devops in particular. So you can have a broad sense of skills and competencies, or you could really narrow it down as a software developer and focus, and we'll talk about that too. And then, of course, the leadership path, exactly how it sounds, progressing your career, starting off as potentially a junior or intermediate developer, and then working your way up to leadership as well. Leadership, you still do get an opportunity to be hands-on and ingrained in the code, and you do have that opportunity to still be, not lose your skills and become rusty in being a dev. But this mostly focuses on the coaching, the mentoring, the leadership of tech teams once you start to gain a bit more experience in your craft as well. So we can talk a little bit further about that. Al, next slide. I feel so bossy. Next slide. So let's talk a little bit about, I really like to frame this up as it's a choose your own adventure, because I think within software development and becoming a dev in particular, really exciting, because there's lots of different paths that you can choose and kind of work your way around depending on your passions, your skills, and where you see yourself growing in your career. So that's why I had that little slide of choose your own adventure. I may be dating myself because others may not remember those books. So just sitting in that there, I'm probably old. So let's talk about dev career paths. I wanted to start off with particular the path where you have that mastery in particular of software development, but also showcase the ability to go into various different opportunities. So of course, here within consultancies and within product companies, these roles are quite common. There may be different names to them. They may code them a different way, but ultimately these are really the functions of development and software development in an organization. You have your front-end development. I won't go too much into this because in case you have any questions in particular about one of these roles in specific, I'm happy to talk through them. But I also want to be mindful of your time and don't want to go through something you may know, but front-end development, exactly how it sounds. These are the folks that are focused on the user interface and the website and kind of that UX and UI side. So these are often really people that are interested in that intersection within technology and might have an affinity towards that design and the UX and the UI of a website or a particular website in general. This is where you've got your skills in HTML and CSS and JavaScript, of course. Got your mobile engineers, and these are the folks that are specifically focused on app development as well. One of the technologies that we're currently using with a lot of our clients within the startup world is React Native. But this is, of course, when you can specialize specifically in iOS or Android as well. Game developers, this is really cool. I worked in a game and entertainment industry years ago. These are really cool as well. These are really people who are focusing on developing code for games and specifically moving down to that path as well. Back-end developers are those who are focused on really understanding the server side of development. So these are the folks that not necessarily have an affinity or don't have a necessarily interest in kind of front-end development, but really are interested in that deep server side coding as well. APIs, the architecture of the system as well. And back-end developers will often have a career path where they move into solutions architecture or, of course, end-to-end development as well. We can talk about that. Next slide. Application developers, of course, this is a little bit different than an app developer. Applications specifically, you may see these type of software developers in very large enterprises, and they're specifically making an internal tooling for big organizations, so big banks, big pharmaceuticals, etc. The languages that you may see someone using here are Java and C++. Data science is a really cool emerging channel that software developers can move into as well. These are people who are really interested in data and manipulating and organizing large data sets or amounts of data. And of course, coding and understanding, and then really being that expert within an organization. The types of languages that you would see someone within this career path use are, of course, Python and R. Data scientists, you may see this role in particular, more so in very large enterprises or organizations that require an understanding of the data that they're manipulating. That could be big, large consumer organizations in places like Amazon, Shopify, where you would have and be able to manipulate large chunks of data. QA and test and automation, we see usually within junior developers, they start to have an affinity. Now, within most software development methodology, usually software developers will test their own code, or there is automation testing. However, some people do take the path that they really are passionate about making sure that quality is ensured when creating a tool or an application. And so some junior software developers may go down that path of really having an affinity for quality, both manual and automated. And then, of course, moving down that path of eventually becoming that AQA manager or being the subject matter expert for quality within an organization. Devops is exactly how it sounds as well. These are really cool people who, again, are have a little bit more of an affinity towards the back end of development. And of course, these are roles like network or system administrators, where you really are that point of contact and the person who makes sure that everything's running smoothly internally and mostly on the back end as well. You still will do some coding. And of course, the languages that you could expect within this type of role, Python, Ruby, Perl, and Linux fundamentals as well. The preface that I'll say here is that within all of these roles, including the last slide, you're not restricted to those particular languages. Those are just an example. So software developer for us too, within the languages and the frameworks that we're seeing externally with most of our clients, Really varies on the type of client. We see a lot of startups, organizations that are product centric or focused within that React world. And what we're seeing as a trend is a lot of enterprises, big banks, pharmaceuticals are leaning a little bit more towards Angular as language. So just to give you a perspective of the types of opportunities outside within particular industries as well. Next slide. Full stack developers. So this is really cool. This is for someone who is really interested in databases, servers, and front end, and kind of everything. We hire here in particular a lot of full stack developers as well that really have a good end-to-end knowledge. They may have gone deep with a particular language like React or Angular, but they do understand how all of the layers interact and work together. They may focus a little bit more exclusively on the front end or UI architecture. They may be a little bit more back-end focused, but really the intent of this role is that you get an opportunity to work really quite broadly within the various different layers, as I call it, the layers of the sandwich, the front end, the middle, the meat of development, and of course the back end, the other layer of the sandwich. Cloud developers, really interesting opportunity. Of course, as it sounds, you focus specifically and have an affinity towards all things cloud, Amazon, Google, and really becoming an engineer in that specific craft as well. Language and compiler developers, we don't see a lot of this, but of course, they're people who create applications that talk to other applications, and languages that we often see for that are, of course, C and C++. Okay. Okay, so now that I've walked through a little bit of the different ways that you can progress as a specific software developer and move into all of the various different channels and different breadth of software, I wanted to explore and go back a little bit further into those different paths. So within the world of software development, you focus explicitly at, let's say you've decided to become a full stack developer. What now? You've become intermediate, you're ready to explore different paths. What are the different opportunities for a software developer moving forward within those channels that I mentioned? So the consultant path, again, as we mentioned, is somebody who's a little bit more closer to the consultancy, a little bit, starting to be a bit more removed from the day-to-day of actual hands-on coding. The expert path, of course, is moving further into, I've decided that I'm really passionate about software development. I want to go and explore this deeply, progress my career. Leadership path is, I really love what I do, but I have an affinity towards leading and mentoring others. And of course, the business path is more so that liaise between the developers and of course, either the stakeholders internally or consultants. So let's talk about the consultant path. Thank you. So of course, consultant path, the various different choose your own adventure, entry level, intermediate to senior. As a software developer, what this path will look like potentially, and pretty much in all organizations, is start off as a software developer. You'd move into solutions architecture, and solutions architecture is an opportunity to really start to think about the UI architecture, potentially back-end architecture, and really starting to map out and design what the architecture of a particular product or solution may look like. So as a software developer, you're particularly focused on coding and developing and executing on the design and vision, whereas a solutions architect then starts to get the opportunity to really start to design and architect the solution themselves. Principal solutions architect and distinguished architect essentially say that you potentially might have chosen a specific path within software or solutions architecture. And again, as I mentioned, that could be principal focused specifically on UI and the kind of the framework of the front end, or going deep into a particular mastery that you may have an interest in. And a distinguished is obviously the next step. It's somebody who may be, I think I just got some feedback. Distinguished is particularly somebody who also is at the level that there's a bit of support of other junior software developers and as well as solutions architects underneath. So this becomes kind of the manager or the leadership of the solutions architecture as well. Expert path. Do you want to roll down? So Very similar in terms of the experience and how you kind of progress in your career as well. You'd start off as a software developer, come in at entry, intermediate, and senior, move your way into software architecture in the expert path, and very similar to the consultant path, move into principal, and then distinguish, which is somebody who leads and is the subject matter expert within the SA world and managing others as well. Leadership path. I'm going to go through. Are they stuck?
Nope, I think they're all there. Is your screen frozen, Cindy?
Oh, just a little bit of a lag as well.
Okay.
Leadership path. So this is what I mentioned, that you start to think about leadership, mentoring, and coaching. So where this starts to veer into a different direction of progression of your career is when you start to see, I really love being a developer, but I have more of an affinity I love leading and coaching and mentoring others. So that is what a technical director is. There's a percentage of your time that is spent in leading and coaching and mentoring. Technical director also, depending on what organization you work at, could mean, oh, I think I saw something, cybersecurity. I'll grab that question in a second. Could also mean that you're consulting for clients or you're consulting internally for your stakeholders. Group technical director is somebody who's achieved the mastery that they are coaching and mentoring other technical directors. And of course, moving up into SVPs and VPs of technology, eventually chief digital officers as your career progresses. And then last, the business path. Wonderful. Business path is more of that mastery of the craft itself. And again, being the subject matter expert, either internally as a SME for stakeholders or externally for clients, depending on if you have an interest in working in a consultancy. So of course, the solutions architecture. Technical director of digital innovation is really interesting because this is someone who is always at the forefront of technology, uncovering what's new and what's next, and bringing that into the organization and making sure that the organization themselves is aware of those frameworks, new processes and technology, implementing them, or with a consultancy type of role, that means educating clients in what's new, what's late and great, and making sure that their technology and their technology challenges are answered with innovation. And then, of course, director of strategy is somebody that will focus on what's the latest and greatest, where can we pivot the organization to make sure that we're not lagging against the industry. Cool, next slide. Okay, so what I wanted to do here is stop a little bit, and I want to be mindful of time to give everybody some time, but what I wanted to show here, and Al, you can showcase both of them, is a bit of an example of, okay, so what does this all mean? What are the skills and competencies that I may need for, and I've picked two of them, a solutions architect and a technical director. And what to expect in terms of the competencies, both soft and technical skills. So for both of these roles, it really depends on the organization in terms of the technical skills that you're offering. Technical director could mean that you have a broad range of overall understanding of tech in general. And that, of course, could mean software development. That could mean DevOps, data science. You have that mastery of technology. But really what a technical director is focused on in terms of those soft skills is the ability and the affinity or the desire to really want to coach and mentor. So that, of course, comes down to communication, collaboration. For us, because we are really mission and vision driven, that means empathetic, that means caring as well for us too. So having those soft skills to be able to and have that passion to lead others are really what we look for in these in particular. For a solutions architect, of course, it depends on the client. It depends on the product, but generally, again, having a really good skill set of having a broad range of understanding of technology, of being able to solution, and still having a passion and desire to get into the code is something that we look for. All in all, communication skills are really important. Consultancy, if you are interested in working for a company that consults, and what that means as a soft skill is just that ability to really lead conversations and redirect people into what is their challenge and how can we help you with that challenge in particular. Internally at a product organization, those skills may still look like consultancy, but you're internally consulting for those stakeholders on whatever product or project that you're working on. Cool, next. Okay, options outside of software development in particular. And you can showcase all of these, AL. All right. So let's say you are a software developer and you're like, what else is there? How can I pivot my career outside of just particularly these streams of either going very deep into software development or in and around software development? You can move into technology strategy. And as I mentioned, these are directors of digital strategy. These are people that are really interested and passionate about technology as a whole, maybe are very curious and are always thinking about what's next. But maybe you've started to think that perhaps that you want to focus on consultancy, of offering your services, of understanding what's going on in the market. So this is really deciding on and working with either external or stakeholders externally to really help to consult. Digital strategy is similar, where you're focused on what's next and what's new within the digital world. And so these could be people within organizations that are kind of like the brainstormers and thinking about what's new and what's next. Creative. If you have an affinity towards UX and UI, you may actually move into the design team eventually as well. So sometimes software developers really have a passion for the visuals, the storytelling of the front end, and they may move into design and product in that sense as well. Those are UX and UI designers. Those are design researchers as well. Delivery, maybe you love technology, but you love the process of it. You really are process oriented. You have a passion for iterative sprints and agile. Delivery are our product managers, our product directors, our agile delivery managers who help to steer the projects as well. Client services, maybe you've decided that your path is not necessarily or moving away from development in particular. Client services is either the business development team that's looking at uncovering opportunities, or the account management teams as well, in ensuring that the product is launched from a business side. And operations and people, that's people like myself and my team, where we support everyone around. It's not uncommon for people who have an interest in technology to move into an operational level and eventually really run an organization, whether that's a startup and helping them from an operational people side, moving the technology team, developing people, and moving and really championing the organization as a whole. Okay, next slide. Okay, and just quickly, because I know we're running out of time and I want to give everybody an opportunity to ask any questions if you have. The non-technical skills, as I mentioned, attention to detail, of course, as a programmer, that's table stakes. Logical thinking and having that affinity and passion to think things through. Creativity is something that we look for as well, and generally in all of these careers, having the ability and the passion and the desire to think creatively through things, and communication, as I mentioned as well. Next. Okay, and these are some of the competencies that in general currently product and consultancies are looking for. If it's a front-end thing, HTML and CSS, and of course JavaScript, testing and debugging, and being able to really champion good code. Back-end languages like Java, Python, Ruby on Rails, .NET. Of course, version control like Git, which I know that all of you have had experience in. And of course, these are some of the libraries and frameworks that we're seeing currently in the market. Not to say that these won't change, and these are absolutes. It changes quite frequently, sometimes week on week within technology, as I'm sure you all know as well. These are some of the ones that we're seeing as trending. Cool. Next slide. And that's it. I will stop talking. I've probably talked a lot, so I will give an opportunity for people to ask questions if they have any.
Ask a question?
Yeah.
Hi, my name is I am learning and teaching. So my question is about someone. Would you have any tips for someone who is interested into getting into the software development career path? For example, in my case, I'm a biologist. I do research in the academic environment, and I just use a lot of programming in Python to do my own data analysis.
Yeah.
So that's something I'm very passionate about, and I would like to apply that in an industry type of setting. Do you have any tips on how I could efficiently translate the skills I have so I can present myself and pitch myself to a company?
Yeah, I think it's fantastic. The background that you have in research is very advantageous to not just necessarily consultancies, but to product organizations. What happens in the discovery session often with clients is that we do that. We spend a lot of time doing research and validating their assumptions on what they want to bring into the market. So that experience and being able to showcase your previous experience is very advantageous to moving into if you're focused on software development. What I would also encourage you to do is to pick maybe an organization. You can do this free now. You don't necessarily have to go to a code camp. There's a lot of options. And if you connect with me after, I'm happy to give you a bit more insights into what's out in the market. But things like boot camps and those immersive code camps can help you to start really understanding a little bit of the frameworks or the languages that you might be interested in to help you bridge your previous experiences. And I would say to any opportunity to showcase your experience, sometimes getting your foot in the door is a little bit difficult, but any experience that you may be able to do in an internship or even side work. So what we recommend for junior developers, or what we call our L1s, is to do projects on the side. So if they've gone and re-educated themselves at a boot camp, they often will take on some pro bono work to help to develop a very simple app to help support an organization that may not have the funding, just to be able to really start to obviously focus on your language skills as well and your coding skills too.
Sounds great. Thank you.
Cool. I always get so nervous when there's no questions. You always wonder, I'm like, did I overdo it? Did I bore people?
It was very interesting, if I may help you break the points.
Awesome. Okay. I was just like, oh my gosh, did I overdo it? My wife is starting to explore different programming languages. Which languages, in your opinion, are likely to be more in demand in the future by Canadian job market? Beautiful question. So what we're seeing as a consultancy, we work, as I mentioned, with a lot of different clients within many different industries, small startups all the way to enterprise. Here's what we're seeing in terms of the trend for frameworks and languages. React is really big. We're seeing this trend happening where React is being taken on more so by the startups and the product companies, kind of more mid-size. If you're looking to get into a large enterprise, we're seeing that a lot of our enterprise clients, like some of the big banks we work with, some of the pharmaceuticals, and just those big corporations, are leaning towards Angular. So my recommendation and JavaScript, of course, my recommendation is have a little bit of an understanding of both of those. However, if you do have a passion or you really want to go into a startup or a product organization, we're seeing the trend here in Toronto and Ontario more so for React. And then the trend for large enterprises, if you have an affinity to work at a bigger organization, is Angular. Eyal and Melanie, any other context? I know that you might have some insights into that as well.
Yeah, for sure. I've been seeing a lot of .NET on the back end,
and yeah,
Ruby on Rails, Golang, I think on the front end seems to be trending now. As you mentioned, React, Angular, a little bit of Vue. Yeah, that's kind of what I've been seeing in the marketplace.
Yeah. Cool. Wonderful. That's a good question. Okay. I think the questions are Yeah, so please, everyone, feel free to connect with myself or Melanie or Eyal if in case you had any questions or feel a little bit shy or nervous to ask here. We're happy to connect and answer them as well. I wish everybody luck on their career journeys and their paths. Please connect with me if you have any other questions or would like a little bit more information about these paths in particular. We're always happy to connect and keep in contact. Slight plug, we are hiring. And so if you are interested in career paths within consultancy and software development, please reach out because we are hiring. Shameless plug for our jobs. Okay. Well, thank you, everybody. Thank you for attending. I know it's Friday afternoon and it's starting to be nice outside, so I hope everybody enjoys their weekend. Okay. Bye.
Bye, everyone.